Having published non-fiction books since 2019 and won awards for one of them, I wanted to share my self-publishing process. It's not as difficult as you may imagine. I remember being completely freaked out about publishing a book, but with the guidance of a mentor, I got over the hump, pressed some buttons, and was a published author within a few months. In today's video, I wanted to show you how I did this in 10 simple steps. Don't get overwhelmed. Take things one step at a time. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments and I'll do my best to help where I can. If you're ready to be a published author, throw some salt on that like button, like Salt Bae style, and let's dive in. So the first point I've got is, and this is really essential, that there's no way to work around this one, is you have to write the first draft, okay? Now I'm working on my first fiction novel, and I'm going through all the ups and downs, the highs and lows of writing a novel, and it's not easy, but this is a critical challenge to overcome. You have to finish writing that first draft. I know it's a non-fiction book, or even if it's a fiction book, you have to get the first draft done, and I know it's difficult, but you have to push through. I've got a complete playlist to help you finish writing the book. If you want to check that out, feel free to. I'll leave it a link at the end of the video. But definitely get that first draft done, because you can't edit a blank page, right? You can't edit without a first draft. So that is like the most essential thing. Get that first draft and then you can move on to the next step. And the next step is self-editing that first draft. Now, ideally, I would suggest myself at least self-edit twice, okay? Now, I like going through it in print as well as using the Microsoft Word read aloud function. Now, these help me essentially catch the majority of issues that I personally can identify easily. I'm a bit compulsive with getting my draft to be like as good as it can be before sending it sending it off to editors. Now, the idea is that the editor will then spend less time on my manuscript. Basically, if you send them like what people might call a dirty draft, or a really raw first draft, you're gonna get more edits and suggestions, back than if the manuscript was, cleaned up significantly. That's just, I think that's just how things are. Now, me being me, I keep an eye on the budget, and I may end up doing this is just my personal thing, right? I may end up doing like 5 or more rounds of self-edits before I send it off to any editors, right? Now, if that kind of freaks you out, don't worry, you don't have to do as many self-edits as I do, all right? But here's a pro tip. You may want to get like a set of eyes on your first draft early on to see if the story makes sense, if what you're talking about makes sense, right? And everything should, ideally flow before finessing your manuscript further for proper edits, as it were. Now, this is obviously budget dependent, of course. Now, if not, maybe find a family friend or family member or someone, or friend, who reads in your niche, right? To provide you with some feedback and high-level feedback, basically, to see if what you're working on, whether there's a story, whether the information is correct, so that kind of thing, just get some kind of feedback to see if it is what they expect from your niche, right? And then you can go from there. Now, obviously, once you've done the self-edit, the third bit is to get it edited. Now, depending on the project and the budget, ideally, I would suggest, a developmental edit, a copy edit, and definitely the minimum is a line edit, okay? You have to do the minimum of a line edit. The first two, ideally, budget dependent, spend what you can. Obviously, make sure you stick to the budget, and most likely there's probably going to be like a couple of iterations for each of these, so it can be expensive, right? This is why I'm saying it's budget dependent. Now, if your budget is really tight, like if you don't have any budget to spend on any of this, then I would do, which is essentially what I did, multiple self-edits. Okay, and you have to kind of look at your own manuscript through kind of the different editing sides of things, right? And try and do it yourself, essentially. Now, hopefully you can get this for free, maybe through a skill swap with someone else who's got the skills that you're looking for, or maybe you can get beta readers who are looking to read your kind of book in the niche, whatever it is, or at least get friends or family to try and read through your book to get their opinion. Now, preferably you want someone who's in that niche. So if you're doing like, business books, right? If you're doing that kind of thing, then you want someone who's in business, who's doing business to read that book, or at least someone who reads business books to read your book to give you their opinion. All right. Now, number 4 is you may want to get a fact checker. So if you got like facts, you're citing sources and stuff like that, you may want to check your references. Now here's a pro tip. Keep a running list of all sources that you cite. Okay, now personally, I use Microsoft Word. I enter all the references manually. Okay, now you can do this if you want as a footnote, end notes, or just have them at the end of your book. So it depends on how you want to reference things. Now this is where you need to do some research on styles. Now I'm not like a formatting expert or copywriting expert or anything like that. So what I would suggest is you do a bit of research to see what style you want to go with, and then just use that. Like, don't procrastinate over this. Don't ponder too much over this point. It's just something to be aware of, and then once you know how you want to cite your sources, just go with that. Okay, don't overthink things. I know it's ironic because I'm a chronic overthinker, but try not to overthink this one. Now, step number 5 is, as your manuscript is going through the editing process, now's a good time to think about getting ISBNs. Now, you need to go to your country-specific ISBN issuer, and there may be costs associated with this. Now, it's free in Canada. Those Canucks are lucky, so check with your ISBN issuers and go from there, right? You may also want to think about like having a copyright or disclaimer page. Now this is very standard with nonfiction books, okay? So obviously you want to say, I can't give you any legal advice, so there's not legal advice, but check books in your genre to see what kind of disclaimers they've got, what kind of copyright pages they look like. And don't be alarmed by anything. If you're unsure, just have a look at those books, and then maybe if you want, you can consult a lawyer to make sure that you are doing everything correctly, right? It's standard practice if you want to include the ISBNs of the formats of the book you're using in the copyright page. But again, check out what other people have done first, and then if you want to, if you have the budget, check with a lawyer to make sure everything's above board and stuff, right? Because it is nonfiction, and people, you obviously don't want to get sued or anything. So yeah, check with a lawyer if in doubt. Now, point number 6 is, once the edits are in the process and you're kind of you'll get a feel when you're nearly there. Now, for example, if you're on the second round of like line edits, I would get the cover design process started. So cover design is the next stage, right? Now this is not straightforward, okay? As much as people say it's easy, it is, but there are a couple of things that you need to know about. All right, now your cover is going to sell your books. Unless you've already got an audience or you've got fans already waiting, most people will judge a book by its cover. That's just reality of it, okay? Now, every book is competing with every other book on the Amazon store or any other store for that matter. So the cover needs to be 2 things. It needs to, number 1, it needs to fit the niche or genre, okay? And number 2, it needs to also stand out within that niche, okay? So it's kind of like, it's got to fit, but it's got to stand out. And that is not an easy thing to do, okay? So get the cover design process started. Find and work with, your cover designer for the ebook format first. Ideally, this is my personal suggestion, ideally get 2 or 3 cover designs, and then go out and poll your fans, poll your audience, right? And see which ones they would prefer. Okay, and like if you don't have fans or anything, maybe just ask your circle of friends on Facebook or Instagram or wherever you are. Just post it on social media and say, look, hey guys, I'm working on a book. I've got the cover designs coming. What do you guys think of these 2 or 3? Whatever it is. And then you've got to turn your attention to like the paper type. Is it going to be a matte or glossy finish on the cover? What kind of interior papers are you going to use? There's cream, there's white. Depending on what kind of printer you're using, there may be more options. So you got to kind of research your niche to see what other books have done. And again, poll your fans and say, what do you guys like? What do you guys prefer? Do you like the white paper? Do you like the cream paper? Let me know. Drop a comment or something. So this way you get active feedback on what people who are reading your niche would like, right? That brings me on to point number 7. Now, the edits should be nearly done. If not, they should be pretty much done. And now is the time when you're looking at the cover, you look at the interior formatting. Now, this is where you gotta do a bit of research, as I mentioned. How do you want the interior to look like? And also, what are the formats that you're gonna be publishing in, right? So personally, I publish in 4 formats. I got ebook, paperback, hardcover, and audiobook. formats. Okay, so you need to get the interior formatting for the paperback and hardcover. Are you going to have bleed or no bleed? You know, get the files ready for the formats that you want to publish in. Okay, the minimum I suggest would be ebook, but depending on your niche, you know, maybe it's not appropriate. Maybe it's just mostly paperback and hardcovers that people want to buy. An ebook might be quite low on the list, you know, so it depends. And also ebook, there's like a file delivery kind of component that may make it kind of costly to deliver files. So you need to kind of balance these out. Now for the ebook format, I don't tend to overthink because it's reflowable formats, right? So the reader, depending on what device they use, they can adjust the font size, they can adjust the font type, so that will automatically change like the word count and stuff like that. So I don't tend to stress over the ebook formatting, but what I would say is I do tend to place a bit more emphasis on paperback and hardcover because that's like a fixed format, if you like. So essentially what you need to do is get your files ready. My personal preference is once you have the files ready, I will upload the final version or as close to the final version and maybe set up a pre-order. Some places allow you to use placeholder files. And other platforms suggest you do not use placeholder files. You gotta kind of check out the platform that you're publishing on for those specifics. If you don't know how to do the formatting, not a problem. You can hire this out again, or you can format it yourself. Now, I used to hire out. Okay, I used to hire out, and the lady who used to do my stuff, Ava, she is fantastic. So if you need that recommendation, you know, just drop me a comment. I'm happy to recommend her. But because I've done a few books on my own, I basically bought Atticus, and that's essentially my formatting software. I solely use Atticus to format all my books these days, right? It doesn't take me long. It takes me like 5 minutes. It's dead easy to use. So yes, that's how I format my books. Now, let's move on. Now, once you've got the interior formatting down, reach out to your cover designer to finalize the cover art, okay? Because, you know, you obviously need to know like the page count for the paperback and hardcover, whether you're going to do bleed or no bleed for that stuff inside, but the cover itself is always going to be bleed, but the size of the book on the paperback or hardcover, like the spine, you know, that your cover designer should know. Well, they will need to know because they're designing the full cover. Usually it's a full spread, so it's like front cover, spine, and back cover. They design that all together. So that's generally how it works. All right. And again, if you don't have your cover art, like if you don't have it done yet, there are some, very budget friendly options. You could even do it yourself. But basically you need to finalize the cover art for all the formats that you want to publish in. Now, just a reminder, I do 4 formats: ebook, paperback, hardcover, and audiobook. I will just get my cover like company or designer to do all formats because I know I'm going to do those, right? And now, as you're waiting for the covers and formatting to come back, this is the time to turn your attention to, that's right, point number 9 is going to be a good one. It's keywords, sales page, blurbs, or Amazon descriptions, right? So you need to kind of mesh these things up, and you need to spend a decent amount of time. And like, again, don't overthink, but you want something that is going to strike the reader to say, okay, yes, I've read this sales page. Yes, I think this is what I want to know about. Yes, this is the right book for me. And you got to, it's essentially your elevator pitch on a page, on a description page, right? Why should readers care about your book? Why should they buy your book? And you don't want to give away everything. You want to give them enough so that they are, invested in reading more. You don't want to give away the farm, essentially, but even if you couldn't, because, that's why your book, right? But you kind of don't my personal thing is avoid summarizing, but more kind of show or suggest and hint at what people can get from your book. Okay, so people are after what they want to get. They don't particularly care sometimes how they get it. They just want to get the result, so if your book delivers on the result, then make sure you tell them this is what your book is going to deliver on. Okay, don't beat around the bush too much. If you're going to say, I will show you how I'm going to make £1 million in 2 days or whatever, I know it's a bit ridiculous. I'm giving you an extreme example, but if that's what your promise is, or that's what the value the reader can get, then tell them, I will show you how I have personally done this, and I'm not suggesting you will be able to do it, but I will show you my method. Okay, you can do something like that, right? So anyway, the point is you need to get on keywords, get your sales page blurb and Amazon description written up, and some of this will probably feed into the cover art on the back page, right? So you probably need to kind of measure these up within this point number 9 and point number 8 on the cover art. So once you've got all of that kind of in place, you are now ready to essentially upload the files. So just upload the files to the whatever formats you've chosen. So ebook, paperback, hardcover. Just upload the files and then start filling in the boxes. For example, in KDP, just fill in those boxes and it'll guide you through step by step. All right. Set your pricing, and you should know your pricing by now because you should have done the research on your niche, right? What are other books being priced at? Like ebooks, right? Let's say, what are other people charging for their ebooks? Paperbacks, what are other people charging? How are people phrasing their sales pages, their Amazon description page? How are they writing the blurb on those sales pages? All these kinds of things you should have done the research on as you were waiting for the edit and cover art and everything. You should have done that, right? So you should have all these ready to go. So all you have to do is click and set your price, and then either set up a pre-order or hit publish, and that is it. You are a published author, right? That is it. Okay, I know there's quite a lot of steps, but I wanted to give you a couple of bonus steps right now. So bonus step number 1, if you're considering audiobook format, it's kind of very similar, except I hired a narrator, so that is like an extra step. So you would need to claim your book on, for example, ACX or Findaway Voices. So ACX, you would claim your ebook, and then you go through the process to hire a narrator. And depending on your budget, you could explore AI options, royalty share options, because the cost of hiring a human narrator can be expensive. Let's face it, can be expensive. I would like to just make sure you are aware of that. Now, I found narrators through ACX, and they've been very good for me. I get a contract with the narrator, they narrate it, I review it. If there's any issues to fix, they fix it, and then essentially I pay them and they release the audiobook files to me, right? I don't generally do royalty share if I can. I would advise paying straight out if you can, but again, it's budget dependent, and it's up to you how you want to run that one, right? Now, once you go through the ACX approval process, assuming everything checks out, your audiobook's going to be available for sale on Audible, and that's it. Congratulations, you got another format of book out in the world, right? Now, you can then take these audiobook files and upload them elsewhere, right? Like Authors Republic or Findaway Voices by Spotify, and then you can reach a wider audience beyond Audible, right? Beyond Amazon. So that's bonus tip number 1. Bonus tip number 2, and this is the final bonus tip. Wherever you are in the process, make sure you are marketing your book. Share the process, share the frustration, share the wins. Just share what you're doing, right? Your audience and fans want to know about your progress. I didn't realize this. I didn't realize that people wanted to know about my struggles as I write my fiction book, but they really do want to know. Some will cheer you on, and some will be like laughing at you at the back. That's fine. Those are not your audience. The people who are cheering you on are your audience, and they are, believe it or not, they are incredibly supportive. So as you market your book, you're more likely to make sales when it does get published than if you do zero marketing. So get on that marketing train right now, okay? Now, finally, if you like those bonus tips, smash that like button like avocado on toast. If your book is published already, you need to get reviews, okay? Social proof to gain more sales. And so check out this playlist right here. That's going to help you get more book reviews. Now, if you are working on your first book, or you want to try and finish writing it quickly, check out this video right here. I'm going to put you on the right path. And by the way, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already.